Just want to remind you guys, this episode is presented by Prize Picks. Download the app today. Use the code JUICE to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. All right, we are back. What is going on, Colts Nation? And welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Of course, your guys, Cody and Derek, back with another one, guys. Well, free agency is just about a month away from when the Indianapolis Colts and all the other teams will have to make some decisions on some guys to bring outside of the building into their organizations. And obviously, Derek, we've heard the Colts and Chris Ballard pretty much hinting at the fact the Colts need to add some outside guys, need to bring in some fresh blood. So with that being said, we wanted today talk about some of our favorite guys that we think would make a lot of sense for the Indianapolis Colts. So without further ado, let's jump right into this, Derek, and I'll let you go first with your first player that you would want to see the Indianapolis Colts go after in probably no particular order here, just kind of how we listed them. Who would that be for you?
Yeah, so the first name I kind of think of, and it's what everyone has kind of been putting to light for the Indianapolis Colts, is Dre Greenlaw. I know that there were some issues otherwise this last year with him, but you have seen Dre Greenlaw be a very productive player when he's been healthy with the 49ers, and I look for him to potentially continue to keep doing that. And he's also young, too, so it'd be nice to get some young blood in here as well to be able to handle that. But also a guy that's been in the league for several years.
Yeah, and a guy that I think would fit very well into the type of linebacker the Colts are looking, and that will, slotting alongside Zaire Franklin there, guy who excels more in that. Really outside of the injuries, Dre Greenlaw has been great. He has been really, really good as a linebacker in the NFL. So, yeah, I would love to see the Indianapolis Colts go and get him. He also was on my list, as he was the only linebacker I had on my list. I contemplated a couple other guys, but Dre Greenlaw's the guy out of all of them that stood out the most to me. So that's why I have him there. So that definitely is one that makes a lot of sense there. And I know you have another linebacker, Derek, that you want to highlight as well. I'll let you kind of give your thoughts on that one. So take that away. Who do you have also at another linebacker the Colts should consider in your mind?
Yeah, so this one's kind of a long shot, in my opinion. I don't think he's as much of an outside guy as what he could be, but I have Zach Bond on here, and I don't know what the Eagles are going to do. I would think that he would end up potentially going back to the Eagles, but on the off chance that he doesn't, this would be one of the bigger moves that I would say that the Indianapolis Colts could make. This last year had the third most solo tackles of any linebacker or any defensive player in the NFL this last year. Was actually tied for second in forced fumbles this year. So the guy does create turnovers. He's a veteran, again, he's been in the league for, 5 years now, was with the Saints for several years and just never quite got the chance to really explode into the scene like what he did this last year. Cody, he had more combined tackles this year with the Eagles than he had in his previous 4 seasons combined. Like, that's how major of a jump this guy took this year. And on top of it, he had 4 sacks as a linebacker. So this is a guy that can also get after the quarterback. So, this is certainly a guy that I wouldn't mind taking a chance on because I think he's coming into his own right now. Again, it'd be very hard to put that kind of money right there in that spot at the moment. But if this is one of the bigger moves that the Indianapolis Colts make that Lou Anarumo could do something with, then I'd be happy with it.
Okay. I did not have him on my list, but one guy that I did have on my list that I don't believe you did was Juwan Holland, the free safety, previously of the Miami Dolphins. He's still very young, Derek, in his NFL career. so far. I think he's only about 24, 25. He's 25 right now. And, through his first couple of years, he's definitely been a ball hawk type of safety, right? And we've heard Chris Ballard go on record and saying, we need to get better. We need to get better in the secondary. And I think Juwan Holland would be a guy that you could plug and play right away. And he would be a guy that, would be an instant impact, upgrade, I think, from Julian Blackmon in a lot of different ways, right? And he's been a guy that has helped, he's been pretty good at tackling throughout his career. He's been pretty good also, when it comes to run stopping. And he's been pretty good in terms of taking the ball away as well. So this would be a guy that I would definitely consider if I was the Colts. Bringing him in as a young guy that I think would fit very well, alongside Nick Cross there at that free safety position. So he would be a guy right there that's a young guy looking what the Colts are needing, and a guy that's a reliable tackler, which we know, Derek, was something the Colts really struggled in a season ago. So I would say Juwan Holland definitely would be an interesting name for me. But when you're looking at some other players, who would be another one that you would consider here on the defensive side of the ball for the Colts to think about?
Yeah, so I kind of go to a few corners here, and I'll go with the less obvious one and kind of just mention it just because I think, again, that this would be more depth rather than somebody that's going to come in and do anything great right off the bat. That would be Mike Hilton. Again, we're chopping away at the second of the defense of the Bengals. Again, a guy that understands things, and there could be some packages where you could get Kenny and Mike Hilton out there if that's what Lou wanted to do. And, again, I don't know how much Mike is going to demand. I think he's going to demand less. He would probably get less money because of the fact that, he had a little bit of a down year when it came to his numbers. The tackle numbers went up a little bit, but the overall turnover worthy numbers were kind of down. So, again, it could be a situation where I think it could definitely work if you got him for the right price. One that I think that everybody in Colts Nation has kind of seen at this point, and that's Charvarius Ward, the cornerback from the San Francisco 49ers. Again, corners from the San Francisco 49ers, it seems to be whenever 49ers come over to Indianapolis, they do some great things. Okay, we saw DeForest Buckner do it. We saw Samuel Womack last year do it for a good chunk of the year. So now I would love to see Charvarius Ward get in there because, again, he's a veteran, but he's also a guy that still has a lot of juice left in the tank, and he's ready to go, man. He's fired up, and I would be super ecstatic if we could get Ward to, not only compete with these young guys, but maybe even take a spot from one of them. I mean, in all honesty, again, you have these young guys who are, still coming into their own. Like, it's not going to kill them if they miss out on a year or two's worth of experience because, they're not as good as the other guy next to you. We need to get this defense better. And if that brings in Charvarius Ward and a guy that's going to be better off in this system, and because and especially for corners get hurt all the time, Cody. So it's always good to just have that extra depth that can actually play. So that would be great just to be able to have someone in there that can really make a difference in the secondary.
Screw the young guys. I don't care. Charvarius Ward is a proven all-pro player. No doubt he's going to be the number one corner. He's going to be probably the best corner the Colts have had since Vontae Davis. I really do believe that. He had a down year in 2024, but man, he would be such a major upgrade. He would be that number one corner that we have talked about that the Colts need. It would allow Jalen Jones to go be cornerback number 2, which I think he's much better suited for. It'd give the Colts a bona fide corner for the next number of years. Again, he's approaching 30, but he can still play the next 2 or 3 years at a very high level. I do believe that. So, yeah, I think out of any of these corners, Charvarius Ward's the one that makes a lot of sense here for the Indianapolis Colts to go get, right? Because the cornerback room, I mean, you just didn't address it last year. You went with the youth movement. You said, we're going to let that kind of be our thing. And it kind of didn't work in a lot of ways. In some ways, you saw some things with like Jalen Jones and Samuel Womack, but also you still don't have a solid answer on who your number one corner is moving forward. So to me, Charvarius Ward would be that guy for the next number of years. Make a ton of sense for the Indianapolis Colts to get him. And I think this would be the best corner you had in a long time, in over a decade. I really do believe that. So, yeah, for me, Charvarius Ward makes a ton of sense here. The Colts got to go get him. That would be a dream come true if they're able to get him there. Another guy I would say as well to consider is Paulson Adebo. He's a little bit younger as well than Charvarius Ward. He was having a really good season, but he did get injured. So there's a little bit of pause there because the Colts have already had a lot of injury issues with their corners. So I don't know if you want to go with another guy that's struggling with some injuries, but Adebo's a good player when he's healthy. And that would be somebody I'd consider there. He's coming off his rookie deal. So he'd be a guy that I think you look at and you say he might be worth a shot there and definitely would be cheaper than probably Ward would be. So that would be another name I'd consider there. But when I think about some other guys on this defense, Derek, the last guy that I have that I want to talk about when it comes to the defense is another safety that I don't think we've talked about probably quite enough, honestly, and that's Talanoa Hufanga from the 49ers. Again, we haven't talked about it a ton when it comes to him, but he's a good player when he is on the field. Again, another injury thing, a concern there, but you know what? When he has been on the field, he has been a really, really good safety. He's been really good against the run. He's been really good in coverage. And, in the last two seasons, when he's been healthy, he's had 7 interceptions between those 2 seasons. So he's a guy that's around the ball. He's a guy that's a sure tackler like Holland. And I think that'd make a ton of sense there for the Indianapolis Colts. I don't know if he's quite the ball hawk that maybe Holland is, but he'd be a solid player nonetheless. But again, the injuries are a concern there, right? So that would be kind of the one pause I would have when it comes to him, when it comes to that.
As we said, guys, today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Now, what is Prize Picks? Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Instead of battling against thousands of other players across platforms, you're basically picking 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you're choosing more or less on those stat projections to be able to watch those winnings roll in. It's very easy. Do you guys want to play along at some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and UFC fighter Sugar Sean O'Malley? Well, if you guys sign up today, you can find the community plays under the promos tab of the app to view the entries of some of the biggest names on the platform and be a part of that as well. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 just like that with NBA, NHL, and college basketball entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Like a lot of other things, guys, they also offer injury insurance, so your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. So if someone exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player projection won't count against you and the rest of your entry stays live. So it's a great bounce back for that one. What I love about the app as well, guys, is it's not just sports like NBA, NHL, football, and tennis, and baseball, and all these other things, but there's also a lot of others that go into it as well. If you like to place entries on video game situations like Call of Duty, CS2, Apex, if that's something that appeals to you, there's a wide variety of sports and video games and everything else that you can place entries on. And I love how expansive it is. Even just looking at the NBA, there's entries you can make with turnovers, with points. You can do combo deals, dunks, field goals attempted, all of these different things. So there's just so many different ways to make money off of these entries. Be sure to download the app today and use the code JUICE to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup.
But I think that's all we have for the defensive side of the ball here. But I have 2 offensive players I want to highlight here, both at the tight end position. I know you have one of them, Derek. I think we both have one, and then I have another guy I want to talk about as well. But who would that tight end be for you that you would like to see the Colts potentially target?
Yeah, and I know it's one of the guys that you mentioned. And, Yeah, it is Mike Gesicki. I think that you need a overhaul at the tight end position. Obviously, you and I have both been very adamant in us getting a tight end in the draft because there's so many good ones this upcoming year that it feels like a crime if you don't do that. But then again, at the same time, there's a few tight ends in the veteran room that I feel like you can take advantage of. And I mean, it doesn't have to be a world burner. It doesn't. It just needs to be a guy that is going to be a little more consistent in that sort of aspect, because I think that obviously I would honestly trust Mike Gesicki over anyone else in our room, to be completely honest with you. I don't really think there's anyone out there of this room. You could get rid of 3 or 4 of your tight ends that you have, bring in Mike Gesicki, and then bring in a draft pick one. And I would feel very happy about the direction of the tight end room, because at least Gesicki has shown you, even in the last few years, as he's bounced around from a few different teams, at least he's been able to put up a little bit of numbers and feel like even at times he's a little bit of an impact when it comes to offenses rather than some of the guys we have.
Yeah, again, last year with the Cincinnati Bengals, 65 catches, 665 yards. I mean, that's probably more than the entire tight end room of the Colts last year combined. I mean, so yeah, I would take Mike Gesicki. I think he's always been a solid player. I think he'd be a nice kind of veteran fill-in guy there. And that would be, like you said, a thing where I would sign him and then still not really change my approach when it comes to tight end. I think you need multiple tight ends. I think you need one in free agency. I think you need one in the draft. That's how bad I think it is. So, yeah, I would like Mike Gesicki quite a lot there. I think he'd be a solid veteran guy in there that has had some proven production. And, he's getting closer to 30, but I think he still has some good years left in him. And then the other guy, Derek, and I think my top target for the Colts at tight end is a guy that actually just recently got linked to them by PFF. That is free agent tight end Juwan Johnson, formerly with the New Orleans Saints, Derek. He is a guy that he had a very good year in terms of reception. He had career highs in a lot of different categories. And last year, he actually had the best receiving season of his career. He had a career high 21 explosive receptions. I mean, we could have taken that last year at tight end. So he's a guy that's kind of on the rise, had a career year. He's 28 years old. He's not a great run blocker, but Derek, you already have how many of those on your roster already?
Exactly.
He is more of that primary receiving tight end.
You don't need a run blocking tight end. You can get any of those for dirt cheap, okay? You need guys that are actually going to catch the football for you.
Exactly. So I look at Juwan Johnson. I look at some of the crap that he's had to deal with at tight end with the quarterback position there in New Orleans. But Derek, this is a guy that just came off a 700-yard season. So I would take Juwan Johnson, a little bit younger than Gesicki. I think you can't go wrong with either of these guys. I think they're solid tight ends. I think they make a ton of sense for Indianapolis. And obviously, Chris Ballard has talked a lot about getting better in the middle of the field. So I think Juwan Johnson would be a great fit there for the Indianapolis Colts. I think it makes too much sense for the Colts to go out and get him and get Anthony Richardson another target. That would make a lot of sense for me. But yeah, that's really all I have, Derek. Is there anybody else that you throw out here? But I think that's all the names that we have.
I know there's more names, and obviously we'll dive into this more as the month goes on, because like you said, there's a little over a month before free agency even hits. We are technically just under a month from when legal tampering period begins. So there's still some time. But yeah, I mean, these are some of the names that, and as you notice, guys, for me specifically, I mainly went defense for free agency, even though I still think that defensively in the draft, you still need to do some stuff there. But again, I think that in the draft, there are offensive weapons in the draft that are in positions that the Indianapolis Colts need this year. There's tight ends galore in the draft this year. Running backs galore in the draft this year. Those are positions that the Colts need offensively. outside of that, I don't feel that there's an immediate need. I think that this defense needs overhauled. I think it needs a lot more people. So let me know what defensive names you guys are thinking about, and I'll definitely go looking into that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it. Like, you just need proven talent in that defense, especially in that secondary. That's why we highlighted a lot of secondary players and a lot of guys, even at linebacker that excel in coverage, right? You need guys like that are going to help, because the Colts have put a major emphasis on finding stuff when it comes to the secondary, from Lou Anarumo to Chris Hewitt to all these guys that they're bringing in. It's very obvious they really feel like they need to improve in that area. So we'll have to see, man, what happens here. But you'll notice a lot of impact players that we're highlighting here for the Indianapolis Colts, and we'll see how it plays out. But it's going to be interesting to see who they do target, because I think there's a lot of guys that could really help them out on both sides of the ball in free agency. But guys, let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Like Derek said, are there any other players that we didn't even highlight that you're like, I think this would be a great fit for the Colts? I think they'd find a really impact player here if they sign this guy. Let us know all those things in the comments down below. But guys, that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. We greatly appreciate it. And as always, guys, go Colts.